what is Christian reconciliation, and how does that differ from non-reconciliation or healing that we might seek to strive for in a secular context? So I'll give that one to you, Bishop, first. Thank you.
Well, when we look at Christian theology, reconciliation is the end of the estrangement that has been caused by the original sin. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 5, right? Chapter 5, verses 18 through 20, where Paul tells us that God has given us the ministry of reconciliation. So first thing we have to acknowledge is that it's biblical. Right? And if we are people who have experienced this personally with Christ himself, acknowledging him as our Savior, as our Redeemer, then we have experienced reconciliation. And therefore, we also have to understand, due to what Paul says, that reconciliation is not a one-time event. It becomes part of a lifestyle. And because of sin, it's a perpetual lifestyle. We look to see how, when necessary, and every time it's necessary, how do we reconcile with those who are around us, those that have offended us, those whom we have offended. Sometimes reconciliation we're misled to believe that it's similar or synonymous with forgiveness, and it's not. Reconciliation actually is the end result of forgiveness. Someone has to forgive. So in the act of forgiveness, you could almost get away with it if you're doing it on your own. There's no result, no repercussion, no response. That's the proper word. But you'll find reconciliation when there is a response. Because you're talking about an intentional, assertive effort of two individuals at this time to restore a relationship that was broken by X factor. So in the church, as Christians, reconciliation is not an option. It can't be. It has to be a part of our discipline, the way we do life. And that is why in this time of crisis, national crisis, we need to be intentional again in finding a way to heal the wounds, to forgiveness, but also to reconciliation.
One of the things when I look at reconciliation is that it's a mutual decision by both parties, the offender and the offended, to restart a relationship but on new terms. So we're not going back on the old terms when we make a decision, because forgiveness is not emotion is a part of it, pain is a part of it, but it starts with a decision. And we are to try biblically to be at peace with each other. Doesn't always mean that it's fruitful. I think that one of the reasons why we have failed at times is because we just want to get past it, but we don't want to engulf ourselves in the actual pain and process of the one who's offended. So we want to say, that's 400 years ago. Get past it. Well, every time I sign my name, it reminds me that my grandparents was raped. I have to do a DNA test to try to find out. I know I come from Africa, but Africa is not a country, it's a continent. Right? So I think what we have failed at is we're just trying to get to the result of it instead of walking through it. And one of the reasons that I believe one party decides how long it should be acknowledged. One party decides how long you should live. One party decides, is it credible that you feel this way? Instead of just accepting the fact, this is how I feel, this is what it is. Systemic racism exists. We can go through all the different proof of it. Like my brother said, you can go Google and be educated. So it comes to a place, should I come to you if I know that you're going to try to water down what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing with my own eyes? In other words, do you see me as just as credible as you see yourself? So I think the failure comes because we want to say sorry without the apology. And sorry just admit that something happened. Apology is an explanation of why this has happened and what are we going to do. That's the problem. If I acknowledge it, then I have to be accountable. And if I'm accountable, then I might have to carry a cross that I don't even want to carry. And the people who might be crucifying me might look like me. Because I have to stand out of the crowd. So reconciliation is very powerful because that means I can't go back to where I was. I can't go back there. I can't act like I don't see it. And I might even have to address my own people who have implied bias. So reconciliation is very powerful because it's a call to action. Jesus could have just died on the cross and forgave us, but reconciliation brings us into relationship. And that's where the issue. When you get into a relationship, you change them and they change you.
I think we can assume that I wasn't a part, but we're always a part because it's going on. So it's not, the question isn't whether I'm involved, it's whether I'm seen. That's the issue, right? And so.
How do you say that one more time?
It's not whether it's happening, it's whether I'm seen, right? It's why I'm hearing, right? It's happening. So coded language happens all the time. Right, so I advocate for public education, and we have these conversations about like getting rid of zone rules for getting into schools, for middle schools and high school applications, and how that's perpetuated injustice related to entrance exams and all these things, screens, studies in high school, all that stuff. So all these parents step into the situation and say, but I don't want my kids to not have the opportunity to go here because that means you're going to have to go to that school or those schools, and so. You're hearing coded language for, really, I don't want my kids to be around those kids. Really, that's what they're saying. And really what they're saying is, those kids are our problem. And really what they're saying is, those black and brown kids are the problem. Right? So it's not a matter of whether I didn't have slaves, right? The issue is, what Juan just said. Do I hear that it's actually being said? And what am I doing when I'm seeing and hearing? That's the issue, because it is happening. It's like a guy shows up at our church, in front of our church, and it's a guy we serve faithfully. He's homeless. He's unwilling to accept that he has a substance abuse problem. Steps in the church, white kid, privileged, homeless. His parents, but basically, they're enabling him to continue this lifestyle. So he steps into our church, and we're finishing up serving our breakfast, and he steps on the front church, and he's like, man, and this is this friend, we brought him into the space, we've given him lunches, we've offered him housing, all this stuff. We've gone the extra mile, we love this man, right? So he's walking by, I can tell he's upset, he walks by, he's like, man, this church treats me like an F and N, man. It treats me like an F and N. It's like, they make me do slave work, man, like an F and N. That's what he's saying, right? He's going on. And I've heard him spout off about a lot of stuff, right? So all the things that he thinks need to change about other people's lives. So it goes on and on and on and on. I said, you can spout off about a lot, and you can never use that word like that in my presence ever again. You can never use that word like that in my presence ever again. Like I said, like that. He's like, why do you matter? You're a white dude. Why does it matter if you say that? Why does it matter? It's like, I love you. You can never use that word like that in my presence ever again. So it's happening. The issue is not like we think, oh, we're in progressive New York City, we're like in their Triborough, and they blah, 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 blah. You can say it's happening in our schools, it's happening in our blocks, it's happening in our churches, right? Where people have to make assumptions and talk down to instead of talk with a bunch of people. So the issue is, am I listening? Am I hearing? Am I seeing? And then I have to educate my people. I go back to love, right? Well, love, but it's understanding. Right? It's understanding. Do I hear? Like when someone steps in and they're being told their coach, like, if you don't, like, beyond cringing, in love correct that moment, I live in Brooklyn, I see all over the place. White silence is white violence. It's violence. It's violence. I'm just allowing violence to continue to occur in that person's life.
What do you think you need to see from we'll call it majority white, but what do you need to see in word and in deed, to believe that now the other party is coming to a moment where they genuinely want to be reconciled versus they just want to get past and move on.
I believe that's not an easy question to
No, it
answer
is not.
because we'll need another day to talk about just that topic. What do I need to see? If I'm going to go to the core principles of response that I think is a proper response to that question, it would be, I need to see a willingness of that person to look through life with the lens that I'm looking through. And at the same time, be willing to put on their lenses and see. Look, it'll be easy for me to approach those who do not desire reconciliation and point the finger. And pretty much accuse them. That's the easy part. I think we discussed that. I think the challenge for me would be, okay, I need you to forgive me. I need you to reconcile with me. And when we do that, I need you to do what I'm also expecting myself to do. And this is the hardest part, right? Is to put aside all the injustices. That's tough because they're real. So put all that aside and begin a new walk with new standard, biblical Christ-centered standard, right? With a whole new system. And I understand that's not going to happen overnight. But I have to be intentional. I have to maintain a level of integrity to pursue and fulfill the objective. What is the objective? The objective is to have peace. The objective is to live in harmony. The objective is to express love, to be Christ-like.
I recall when I was, I think, 9 years old. We were in the church van. Again, my dad was the pastor, and we had my mom's best friend who eventually, she was already a Christian, but she came to our church. She became a deaconess at some point. Her name is Diane Jackson. She was a Korean lady, but she was married to an African-American man. He served in Korea. They got married, and when we immigrated to the States, from day one, my mom went to Becton Dickinson and worked for that company for 30 plus years. And Mrs. Jackson became like my aunt. She befriended my mom, defended my mom, and just became her greatest advocate when she couldn't speak English, had no idea what was going on, misogynism, racism, you name it, it was happening. This is the early 70s. We were in the church van and we were going to Patterson to visit one of the shop owners there. We were opening up I think it was actually my aunt and my uncle. They were opening up a women's boutique downtown Patterson. We were going to go there just to pray together. And as we're driving through Patterson, Mrs. Jackson, there's a bunch of folks in the car. And then Mrs. Jackson is sitting up front, and this, my mom's in front of me in the middle kind of seat, and this lady says in Korean, and my Korean is horrible, but I knew all the bad words, the cuss words, and the important words. She said something about, just look at all I think she used the Korean word for cockroaches or something, right? A racial epithet. And I was just appalled. Even as a 9-year-old, I knew that's just wrong. Especially so, just period, but Mrs. Jackson's in the car. And I saw my mom kind of tense up, and I think she grabbed the lady's hand to tell her, please stop, just be aware of your surroundings. And Mrs. Jackson's just a gracious, godly woman. She turned around and just made light of the situation. She just deflected and just kind of, very graciously let it pass by, didn't make an issue of it. When I think back to that situation, I remember having a conversation with Mom years later saying, Mom, how could you have not said anything? How could you have not spoken in such a pivotal moment? And how could you have not defended your best friend? I mean, Mrs. Jackson used to bring us Thanksgiving turkeys every Thanksgiving to celebrate as a family. And, you know, I'm not trying to throw my mom under the bus, but she just said, you know, it was complicated. And I love Mrs. Jackson, I love Diane, I love Mr. Jackson, but it was complicated. And that was basically what her answer amounted to. It's for situations and scenarios like that where I have remained silent, where I have not gone beyond, you know, just squeezing of the hand or the ceasing of whatever garbage is coming out of whatever person's mouth or life, and move forward. And this is how I view what it means to be to go beyond just not being a racist, right? Being anti-racist, going that step further beyond, you know, your comfort zones and speaking and acting and being that bridge that's going to get stepped on both sides, right? That was an incredible illustration. And that's what I need to personally repent about and seek forgiveness of from David Frazier, who's one of my good friends growing up. We ran track together. His father was a Baptist pastor of Mount Ararat Baptist Church in Rutherford. My dad was leading the Korean Baptist congregation, and there were times when I could have said, I could have acted, I could have done things differently in light of situations, and I didn't. So, no different from my mom, but it's very similar in the sense that we just both needed and continue to need the grace of Jesus Christ. And as we have been reconciled vertically with God on His terms, which makes it so easy for us through Christ Jesus, like your brothers have said, we are now engaged. We've been doing this ministry of reconciliation. We are ambassadors, agents of reconciliation. That's how I need to move forward personally.
Hi, we want to thank you so much for watching today's video. This is part of a 6-part discussion on this topic. And so if you want to see all 6 parts, we encourage you to do so. We're making these videos as an educational resource. We're also including a companion study guide for you to bring to your small groups at your church to help facilitate these conversations. If you want to learn more, or if you want to come visit us one day, all the information is in the comments section below. We're trying to create more videos just like this. So also if you want to support this ministry, we encourage any donation, big or small, to help us in this endeavor. And again, bears repeating, if you're ever in the Flushing, Queens area and you want to come visit our church, we invite you to do so, or you can visit us virtually. Again, all the information is in the comments section below. Thank you so much.